I have a million questions that I'm asked all the time about being an entrepreneur. What's it like, and is it scary being an entrepreneur, and how did you get started? And there's a million questions people want to ask you. And I thought to myself, bang, one day, wouldn't it be great to have an entrepreneur's masterclass where I can bring some of these unbelievable people, people like we read about them and we read their stories. They're legendary, but we only see them on film and we have visualization of what they are, but actually to sit down with them and talk to them. I thought, wouldn't that be a wonderful way to learn? Nothing's new. I remember watching the old actor classes several years ago, how they visualized and how they created their careers and how they just kept getting better and better. And I thought to myself at that time, what a wonderful way for a young person to learn the craft directly from the old guys. I thought it was a very elegant way to teach. Hello, I'm Peter Thomas. Welcome to the Peter Thomas Entrepreneurs Masterclass. Well, have we got a great class for you today. As a successful entrepreneur, the one thing I've found absolutely needed for success is mentorship. Throughout all my adult life and with every new business that I launch, I've had mentors, and I still have mentors today. They're essential for entrepreneurial success, and there is no better mentors than those with deep experience of the ups and downs and the wins and losses and during those wild and crazy unpredictable times in the markets, such as we find ourselves navigating right now. Our guest today is Bonnie Addario. I've known Bonnie literally for decades, and I'm so looking forward to this interview. Bonnie is one of the best role models on the planet for entrepreneurs for so many, many reasons. When I think of Bonnie and Bonnie Addario, words come to my mind like this. These are the words I first think of: compassion, kind, caring, happy, mentor, inspiring, committed, excited, awesome, and most important, a friend. These are just to name a few. I've known Bonnie through one or two of her 9 lives. And today, I'm going to ask Bonnie to share tidbits, secret sauces, habits, and intuitive actions that she's used and taken through her many lives that have guided her to sit where she does today, at the top of her game. And a game that she's chosen to take on, and a challenge she's chosen to partake in. Now, Bonnie's first career moved her through the ranks of up to the presidency of the Olympian Oil Company. Olympian was a national U.S. oil company, and then she and her team created yet another company that became what is now known as Fleet Card USA, which is owned by FleetCor, which is the largest global fleet fuel card provider in the planet. It offers a large selection of fuel cards appropriate for every type of business. Now, Bonnie's group ended up selling that company just before she was diagnosed with stage 3B lung cancer, which is over 12 years ago. Recognizing the need for education, empowerment, advocacy, and research to help patients and families, Bonnie and her family, I got to mention Tony because he's such a huge part of Bonnie's life, they founded the Bonnie J. Addario Lung Cancer Foundation, ALCF, in 2006. In 2019, ALCF and the Lung Cancer Alliance merged, forming the Go-To Foundation. Bonnie acts as an advisor to industry, leaders, clinicians, policymakers, and members of the Personalized Medical Coalition Board. Now, to conduct this interview, I'm going to turn it over now to Dr. Tim Rishalti. Tim, thanks for facilitating. I'm going to hand it over to you now, and I'm going to just sit back and listen and learn. And I might even ask a question or two as we go through.
As you look back on the journey, what do you think some of the most pivotal points of that journey are, and how would you describe those today?
All this craziness started when I was 19, and my dad gave me an option, one option, and that was to get to work. College was not an option for me. It was for my brothers, but in those days, you were supposed to just get married and have children. So I went to work for the phone company in downtown San Francisco, and I was only there 2 years and promoted to management when I was 19 years old. So that's where I kind of got the idea that maybe I was doing something that I really wasn't aware of, but it was meaningful to other people.
We're talking about pivotal points. Clearly, that was a pivotal point in your life and career at that point. Talk a little bit more about that time in your life.
Reporting to the general manager of Pac Bell in San Francisco, and he told me that he was impressed with the fact that I was always the first one there and always the last one to leave, that I wasn't afraid to ask questions, and which I'm not even to this day. It is never embarrassing to me to ask questions of people I don't even know. I have no problem calling the president of Chevron if I need to do that. And you know what I discovered? They don't mind. They're actually flattered that you're asking them for help. So asking for help is a huge, huge part of successful people, I believe. And having a network of people that you can pick up that phone and get information that you don't have.
How did you make the transition from telephony services to the oil industry?
I had 3 children and found myself with no husband. He was looking for different things in his life, and my house was repossessed. Um, my car was repossessed, and I was living in Texas at the time. So I rented a car, put my kids in the car, drove back home to the Bay Area, and with really not much money in my pocket. Thank goodness my mother-in-law was an amazing help to me, especially with the kids. Got them all tucked into school, and then I started looking for work. And the first place I went, because I hadn't worked in a while, was Kelly Girl, which was an operation. Um, you go, do some testing, and they figure out what you're good at, and they start getting you part-time jobs. So I did that, and I worked at various different places. And I think the interesting part about that is every single one of them offered me a job, a full-time job. But it gave me the opportunity to, find out what was going on in the world in the job market. Was marketing something I was good at? Was sales? I really wasn't sure at the time. So that really helped me jump to the next level, because one of those companies offered me a job, and it was a services job, mainframes they were selling. The name of the company was Com10. And, uh, you know, adapted to it really, really well. I loved it. But then I met my current husband, who was also working at that same place. And we decided along the way, one of us had to go, because neither one of us was getting any work done. Notes were being, passed, and he was an executive there. So I said, I will go look for another job. You've got the better job. I'm out of here. So I had a choice between 2 jobs. One was a liquor distributor, and I love wine, I must say, as the Thomases know. Um, and the other one was a Libyan oil company. And I went and interviewed with the president and CEO of the company, because they were looking for an administrative assistant for the owner and his father, the founder. And I just thought, I can work with this guy, because he started interviewing me, and he was asking me the craziest questions that had nothing to do with work. And we just had this connection, and I thought, okay, here's where I need to be. So from that point on, now I'm in the oil company, right? And I'm sitting in an office between these 2 people, and I just sucked up information like a sponge. Everything that crossed my desk, I read thoroughly. I learned, I put it away. And, then they started giving me promotions. My very first promotion was supply and distribution. And my job was to buy fuel for the company. And I didn't know much about that at all. And this was via the pipeline into storage. So I went down to the Santa Fe pipeline, who were in charge of the storage facilities and the pipeline. And I met with 4 people, and I spent the whole day. They showed me how the pipeline worked, how you ordered fuel, how you ordered time on the pipeline, and all these things. They became friends for life, because throughout my purchasing and selling fuel that way, I called them constantly, for various different things, and actually really became very good at it, to the point where, I was buying 50,000 barrels at a time. And my boss, who was the CEO, he said, Bonnie, close my door. I can't even listen to this. You're making me crazy. So I said, okay, I'm closing the door. But it was great. It was absolutely great. And then I went, then I actually worked in every single department in that company in some form or fashion, either with those people or reporting to some of those people, or some were reporting to me. And, ended up learning all of it. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I couldn't get to work fast enough every day. I just couldn't. I couldn't get, and I never wanted to leave, but my kids were hungry and I had to go home.
So you started off as the administrative assistant, and just quickly remind us, what was the position you ultimately ended up in?
President.
So you went from the administrative assistant to the president role. I could simply ask one more question for the entire rest of the interview and just say, what happened in between?
A lot, as I just explained, but and here's where I really took advantage of establishing relationships, especially outside our company. You learn so much more by going outside than you do internally, because I think sometimes we get stale because we're doing the same thing over and over again the same way. And if you go outside, you find out there are new ways to do things, and ways to do them easier, more cost effectively, all of those things. So I remember one time I was meeting with one of the big guys at Exxon, and we were discussing, pipeline purchases. At the time I was buying from Exxon, and we were having lunch, and we were working on a price, for the purchase. And I said, well, how about this? And he said, what? And I said, there's some dice over there at the bar. What if we just shake dice? And, and he looked at me like I was an alien, but he said, nobody has ever asked me to do anything like that before. And he said, and I'm not going to do it now. But he says, I am never going to forget this, ever. So, and we actually became really good friends too. And he really taught me a lot, because he ended up one of my go-to people.
How did you find to do that? What propelled you to think in that way and to have that mindset to reach out and to connect with people?
I have worked with people throughout my lifetime that are terrified of doing that. They're afraid of being embarrassed. They don't want people to think they're stupid. I think only smart people reach out. I think, the silly ones are the ones that don't. But people really, for the most part, are terrified of doing something like that. And I wasn't terrified to do it. So what was the worst they could say? It's like, the worst thing they could say is, I don't have an answer for you, and please don't call me again, right? That might have taken me aback a little bit, but it never happened. It never happened.
How do you think of success? How would you define success?
If you don't love what you do, you're not going to be really good at it, and you're not going to be successful because you're not going to be happy. So, I think all that rolled into one is important. And if someone asked me what I would recommend, I would ask if they were happy in the job they're doing, and if they're not, I would counsel them to find a new one.
Are there other kind of rules or ideas or philosophies of work and connection and follow up and follow through that you find valuable in achieving that success over a long period of time?
Being the first one there and the last one to leave, being present, listening. I think listening is a huge value. If you're not a good listener, I guarantee you're not going to make it, because people are going to get tired of inviting you to meetings because you're doing all the talking and you're not doing any listening. So, that's one of the values. One of the other ones, my favorite word in the whole wide world is authenticity and authentic people. I just don't find myself getting along well with people that aren't authentic. And that has been a word that has served me really, really well, over decades now. Because authentic people tell the truth, and they don't massage things, and they don't give you bad information. They're just authentic. It speaks for itself.
What do you do as a leader to help maintain alignment and to help maintain drive and perspective and hope in times of great challenge and struggle?
I like to look for the silver linings. And I could write a book right now on the silver linings about what we're all discovering with everything that's going on with COVID, with how we're responding to that or not responding to that. Um, Black Lives Matter. Everything that's happening right now is there's silver linings in every single one of them. And if you focus on the silver linings and not the negative part of everything that's happening, it makes you happy. I can give you some for healthcare right now, which are huge, and they're going to be here to stay forever. Telehealth, because so many of these patients that have the COVID virus are taking over the academic centers. Those centers have become COVID hospitals. So the oncologists, especially because that's the field I'm in, are doing telehealth because a lot of these cancer patients, and not just lung, every cancer patient, are being asked to withhold their chemotherapy, withhold treatments, delay surgeries, all kinds of things. So, the attention can be paid to COVID. So silver linings are telehealth, the doctor doing what we're doing right now, and the patient actually feeling better because they've made contact with their doctor. Their doctor is relieving them, telling them, you're going to be okay. It's okay if you don't have your chemotherapy for 2 weeks, but they're doing other things. We're sending phlebotomists to cancer patients' homes and doing the blood draws. One hospital in Florida sent a nurse to someone's home to give them their chemotherapy there. uh, you know, Silver linings. These are many amazing solutions for for how we can live with what's going on and live beyond what's going on. Because all of these things we're doing right now for patients are going to be lasting things that can be done. These are solutions for clinical trials. I always say we need to bring clinical trials to the patient rather than making them come to it, because 50% of all clinical trials happen in 10 states. So patients have to travel more often than not to get into a clinical trial. But if we can do all that testing close to their homes in the community hospitals, because the community hospitals are the ones in COVID that are taking over all of that type of work, that they don't normally do, but they're jumping in there and they're helping. I could go on and on, but silver linings for COVID are amazing, and I am confident we're going to get through this crisis and we're going to be better because of it.
How did this mindset of yours come about?
I had some issues growing up, and I had to learn how to get things done without the help of my parents or others. And I did reach out when I was young to my godmother and, to a favorite teacher and things like that that got me through some difficult times. So I learned when I was very small and very young how to work around, a difficult position. And now I like to also share that, again, silver linings. My godmother was just I, I'll give you a little story. When I was driving back from Texas with my children long ago, I called. She was the first one I called when I got back to California, and she said, what can I do for you? And I said, just let me know you're there, and I might need to pop over for a cup of coffee. But she said, okay, but in the meantime, I'm going to put a little money under a rock somewhere for you, and I'm going to tell you where the rock is, because I know you are proud and you don't, maybe want to let me know, but it's going to be there if you need it. Silver lining, ah, still to this day makes me cry, you know. And the other thing I always do, everything I do relates to the 80-20 principle. Right now, with all this stuff going on, it's really only 20% that are the negative people. And we need to focus on the 80% that are doing the right things and and working to end COVID and, and bring all of these precious people in that have been ignored for hundreds of years. It's time. It's time. 80% of the world wants to fix that, and we're going to do it.
You right from the first time you got that job as the assistant in there, sucking up all that knowledge and that watching these pros do what they do, you learned some stuff in there that I'd like to ask you about. And you're a master negotiator. You get people to come to your way of thinking. Um, what school did you go to learn those negotiating tricks and skills?
I went to the School of Motherhood. I raised 3 children, and I was negotiating day and night.
Did you win? Did you win a lot of them?
We compromised a lot.
You so intuitively do the right things. Intuitively do it. And that's sort of God's blessing. And I wonder if those skill sets can be passed on, like because you do say, well, if you work hard, you're honest, you're transparent, you're oh gosh, all the things that you were saying here, and being authentic and listen. It seems to me that those are the rules because that's what you do. You don't just automatically your goal is not given to you. It's given to you because you listened, you were authentic, you played the game by the rules, you worked hard, you got up in the morning, you're passionate about what you do. So I guess I'd like to ask you, do you think that those skills that you have, that if you had somebody who was bright, young, and bushy-tailed and passionate, an open mind, could you teach them to do what you've done?
Yes. And I think you teach by example, and you have to give them ideas to prove it to themselves. It's not just talking to them, and it's not just teaching them. It's by setting them up to try new things so they learn, and then they're confident that this is a good idea or a good trait to have. I used to have a sign on my desk that was "The buck never stops here." And they would come in and they would want to maybe tattle on someone, and say, well, so I didn't get this done because so and so did this or whatever. And I said, oh, that's interesting. I said, so what are you going to do to work on that? What are you going to do? And they said, well, I need you to tell me what to do. And I said, well, I can't do that. You have to figure that out yourself. Or I could call him or her and get them in here now, and the 3 of us could talk about it. It's like, oh no, because they don't want you to know. They don't want that other person to know that they're talking about them. But just that process, they think, okay, I'm not doing that again. I'm not going to go back in there again and tattle on anybody because I got to figure this out myself. I am alive today because some people agreed to gather together and help me with what I needed. And I saw a huge injustice when I was on the internet all of this time, taking all of this treatment. I was learning about lung cancer, and there's a huge injustice there, huge, because people believe that the only people that get lung cancer are people that smoke. That's clearly not true. Someone decades ago decided, that was probably the CDC or somebody in Washington D.C. that decided that. So consequently, the survival rate for lung cancer is very low. Lung cancer is 1/3 of all cancer, by the way. It's the big mama or the big daddy. And I made up my mind when I was in the Barca Lounger getting all that chemo and radiation and everything that if I survived, I would do something to change the survival rate of lung cancer. And I remembered a quote from Bobby Kennedy long ago in the 60s when he was considering running for, he was running for office, but he was also very protective of the migrant farmers and Cesar Chavez. And somebody asked him about that one day. He said, why are you so bent on this? He said, because if you're passionate about an injustice, you need to do something about it. So that's what I'm doing. I'm giving back because I survived, and I really don't believe that things happen by accident. As somebody told me a long time ago when I was working at the oil company, they said, You're really lucky, aren't you? And I had to giggle, it's like, oh, yeah, just crazily lucky. Um, but I said, yes, I am. But there's something that I'm meant to do, and this isn't it. I don't know what it is, but there's something out there that I'm meant to do. And what I'm doing now and what I've been doing for the last 16 years is what I was meant to do.
Thank you so much for the love and the light that you give the world. And thank you for allowing us to have you as part of the master class. You make us feel good. You do us proud.